I'm in my studio on a rainy, chilly, late October day in Vancouver. It's almost, toque weather. Well, I'd argue that it is. And listening to Billie Holiday. She just kind of fits the, my God, Billie Holiday. She's just enough to slay one. Okay, so I'm out here. It's been over a week since I've been back from my meeting a Mississippi mentor road trip. And, as I was mentioning before, I was going to take video. I was going to, do a series of videos and all that. And I'm deciding and thinking about this as I'm driving that I don't think I can play that game consistently anyhow. If I have work to do, I can't always be thinking about videos and editing them with any sort of style and flair and all that. Not at this stage, and I just find it's unnecessary. So as I also described, I'm on here just to hopefully connect with somebody, and this way I can it's kind of like a job interview for me. I can kind of articulate myself, and if I do feel as though I'm able to line up with somebody, I can just steer them to this video, and then they can take the time and maybe watch, and maybe it'll give them a better understanding whether or not we're able to line up and do some project or some work together. So that's my goal. So, as I had mentioned on the previous video, I'm going to talk about Clarksdale, Mississippi. That was my destination, and I want to give a kind of a recap and my interpretation of the man, the artist that opened his lifestyle and opened up the opportunity for me to go down to Clarksdale, to have a destination, and to actually be received by somebody that I thought was really interesting and really worthwhile going to visit. And let me tell you, John Ruskey, he's a Colorado boy. His father actually was born and raised in Vancouver, and his father went to, I think, college or university in Colorado, and that's where he met his wife-to-be, married, and that's where he stayed. But John Ruskey, the guy that I saw him on a documentary some years ago. Stephen Fry, the great British comedian, presenter, writer, however you want to describe Stephen Fry, did a thing with BBC where he was driving around all 50 states in his London taxi cab. And I watched it, I think it was near the start of COVID. I think it's like 6 or 7 parts. I think you can still find it on YouTube. And anyhow, when he made it to the Mississippi, I really tuned in to the guy that was on the canoe with him, which was John Ruskey. Something about this guy attracted me. I knew that this person was living an authentic life. I knew that he was thinking big picture, and he was taking in the physical, real world all around him, and I just felt that. And so I checked out the name John Ruskey and got the phone number and did a little bit of reading and YouTube watching, and wrote an email. And John received my email graciously, and I could hear his positive response in the words that he wrote. So about 3 years later, I kind of kept in contact with him here and there, and then it was just about a month ago that I drove down. I took a road trip through America, Washington and Oregon and Idaho and Utah, and Colorado and Kansas and Missouri and Arkansas into Mississippi. And on the way home, I did a little bit of a different route. I went Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, a little bit of Route 66 there, up into back up into Colorado, and then Utah and Idaho and Oregon and Washington on my way home. So 12 states. I camped it. I talked to the people, and it was great. But the highlight of my trip, undoubtedly, was taking in John Ruskey and the town or city, however you want to call it, I don't know what they call it, of Clarksdale, Mississippi. It was a special little place in this world. Clarksdale is like the birthplace of the Delta Blues. Muddy Waters, we drove through his old plantation several times when I was there. Ike Turner's from there, and this is like, I think there's 20,000 people that live there now. I think maybe it was 40,000 before. Ike Turner, Sam Cooke, John Lee Hooker, and those are some of the names that I can remember. It's a musical pilgrimage for a lot of people from around the world that are into the blues. You can walk around, if you're staying in like the downtown area, you can walk around the streets in the evenings, and you don't even have to know what's going on. You're going to stumble upon a little happening. You're going to stumble upon some live blues. I think it's 7 days a week they are presenting to the people there. These people run these little juke joints. Now the city, the town, once I drove in there and got out of my vehicle, you can instantaneously feel something. Like you can just feel the history, you can feel the music. Like it's just really palpable. Like it was you know, you're driving in, there was cotton fields, and they were about to harvest that. The things just seem way more slow and cool and friendly. It was hot when I arrived, and you could just feel the history. You can feel the music, and you know, I didn't know the extent of the special place in the world that this is. It's a little universe unto itself. Very difficult to explain, actually. Very creative, very open. You can do your thing. Nobody's on top of you, and it was really cool. And you could just it felt really good for a creative artist type of guy like myself. And that is what attracted Mr. John Ruskey to the town. And John was learning from a musician, a blues musician in Clarksdale when he was younger. Just one second here. And he, the guy's, it was kind of John's mentor, a guy named Mr. Johnny. And Mr. Johnny ran a little bit of a mentoring program after school, and I don't know the details of that, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about that, but John was inspired by him. So John plays some music, and early on, and I don't know the full story, but you know, John landed in Clarksdale, and he started setting up shop. And a series of things happened. I think he's been there for over 30 years now, or something like that. And he has formulated a business that is, you know, many people have walked through the doors. And so John, actually after high school, him and one of his best friends built a raft, 20 foot by 12 foot, and they put it in Minnesota somewhere on the Mississippi River near the, I don't know if it's near the source or it wasn't big enough, but I think where they could put it in, and they took it upon themselves to go down the river in a raft. And wow, you know, like it just to, if you just stop and think about that for 1 second, it's very, that's courageous, and just so adventurous, and it's just like this, how do you learn something more? How do you learn better than that? You're telling me a first year of college is going to teach you more than you would learn if you were going down the Mississippi River in a raft that you had built? I would have to argue against that. And I'm talking about generally speaking, you know, in experiential ways. So John landed there, and then his company, the Quapaw Canoe Company. So John builds canoes. He's built dugout canoes, which are there's a long-standing history from Native peoples of building dugout canoes, and he also builds, I forget what they're called, the strip canoes, where they're just one sec. I got a guy creeping around here. He doesn't look like he's in the best of shape. I just want to make sure that he's not up to something. One sec. No, I think he's gonna be going on his way. So John builds canoes, beautiful canoes out of strips. I think it's cedar. I'm pretty sure it was cedar. And he has taught, he has mentored young people on that process. And, but John is, just to break this down, if I'm gonna get my notes out here. Like, if you were to look at a map of America, and you just look at what goes right down the gut, it's this massive river, obviously, the Mississippi River. And it's a, there's lore that goes into that river, of course. Like, it goes from it goes to the northern state of Minnesota, right into the Gulf of Mexico, through Louisiana and New Orleans. And it's massive, and it kind of drains most of America, North America. And so when you look at that on a map, and then to take a guy that I'm talking about right now, John, that knows the river better than anybody, has studied it, has set up camp, literally, figuratively, on that river for decades, to be in it, to be around it. He has been inspired by it, obviously, and to run his business around it. And to me, that was very attractive. Anybody that's doing anything like that is attractive. It's authentic. So John's a creative person. He's an artist. He paints watercolors. He's writing, and he's deep thinking. He's looking at the whole big picture. He's building, like I had mentioned, he's building canoes, and I had also mentioned he's playing music. So his whole being and the whole business. Another thing that's very attractive to me is the fact that there's no real separation from his artwork and like his business. It's all encompassing. Like, he adds on to his business via his creative zest and the way that he sees the world, and how he does that. Like, for example, I'll get into it maybe here. I'll see how if I go down my list what I can talk about. So, needless to say, for me, the man that I had met, John Ruskey, it was kind of what I had hoped for, what I was going down there for my own exploration, and what I was trying to do. It was what I had hoped for, and even more. And we weren't spending every waking hour. I had my time. I know he's a busy man, but we were on the river 4 days. We spent 2 nights out there, and then just to be around his business and then see the people that were coming all around him, and then how he handled things, and how he kept a real beautiful demeanor, and was in control, but he doesn't have to do it by being the loudest person in the room. So meeting John, yeah, like I got there, I waited, or when I parked, he shows up on his bicycle, and it was just real natural. It was a hot day. He always has an array of beautiful old hats, feathers in them, and things like that. He really welcomed me. I felt like I was, um, uh, I felt like I was welcome there, and it was done really naturally. There was no like, oh my God, we didn't do this, or it was just like, here you are, man, welcome, be yourself, figure it out, and we're glad to have you. And it really felt like that. So I already got into Clarksdale, John's business, his story. These are my notes here. Mr. Johnny, who I had mentioned, the Mississippi raft, the music, mentoring, making canoes. Okay, so when we get there, I got there. I slept in the space that he has, like a big studio. He's got workshop for canoes, a woodworking shop, an office, kind of a front room that's kind of like a display room where people come in, sign their waivers, and he has like his showpieces in there, like a canoe that was built by him, some of his paintings, some artifacts, old bones and things like that you pick up that the river washes through. So the first day we get there was, or the first day that I got there on a Tuesday, and on the next Wednesday we took out a group of Italians. I think there was 11 of them, and they were on like a photography workshop type of thing, traveling photography, and they look like they were in their 60s, kind of, maybe a couple in their 50s, but I would say like 60s, even a couple into the 70s. And you could tell they were coming from they were coming from Milan, Rome, Florence, all over. English, they had a little bit of English. They had a leader, and they went to Clarksdale to photograph that town and take in some of the blues music and do it as a photography project. So we had them out on the river. It was kind of a chillier, little bit of a drizzle out there, and that was a great experience. That, just to be out there, and I had to figure it out. I helped I kind of assisted these guys, and I just helped them out as a first mate on one of the canoes. These are large canoes. We're taking, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 people per canoe, plus gear and food and all that stuff. So that was a great experience. And then it was a couple of days. We had free. I think we had Thursday and Friday free, and then on Saturday, a group of 6th grade students, 22 of them in total, and one guy that ran the program, Dean, and the principal of the school, Matt. Those guys were probably in their 30s or 40s. They came. They were the two main teachers that that were keeping those kids in line. And they brought a gentleman named Ken with them who has roots in Clarksdale. And Ken was kind of like a mentor, kind of a helping adult, just to help do a few things, get in a canoe and just kind of be an adult there. And Ken was brilliant and wonderful, and he knows his astronomy, and he was teaching kids some star formations, and I had great conversations with him. I really liked him. I wish that I could actually have prolonged them. If I lived in and near that town, I'd definitely have many coffees with Ken. They were interested in what's going on up here in Vancouver compared to where they're living down in Mississippi. So we took these kids out, and I watched John and his team outfit them. They prepared for some time. John had 4 canoes. One of them was manned by John. I was in John's canoe at the front. Another one was Camille. She's out of Jackson as well. She's an outdoors woman, really sharp, strong, focused, energetic, fit, lovely person, smart, capable, all of those things person. Another guy, and then he had Otter, was it Possum? Possum. And he was an outdoors person. I was trying to think of his first name, and I think it starts with an L, but it's kind of slipped me. Sorry about that. Yeah, Possum. He had a canoe, and he kind of has a bit of a tributary of on the Quapaw business out of Vicksburg. I think he was great. He's a real outdoorsman, good attitude, knew his stuff, real sharp. And on the other canoe was John's right-hand man named Mark River Peoples, goes by River. River was has been with John for, I think close to a decade now. They've worked hand in hand, and he was a deep thinking person, and I really got a lot from him, and I wish that I would have been able to have spent more time maybe getting to know River a little bit more. He's got a really interesting past. You can tell that he's he knows how to do the work to get things done. He played professional football. He played in the NFL for the New York Giants, and I think he told me he played a couple of years up here in Canada, I think for Calgary and for Toronto, but I could have that wrong, but I think it was Calgary and Toronto. Smart guy, loves the outdoors, knows his stuff, took it very serious, and he handled all the food, and it was really well done. And it was done with focus. Like everybody, I watched them all handle their jobs seamlessly, and they worked as a team. River's cooking on a fire. He's getting a fire going early morning, bacon and eggs for 30, 40 people. Probably 30, close to 30 something people, and has to plan all that out, and it was really well done. So just to see those people that John has surrounding him, and how he lets them, they're their own personalities, they're their own thing, and they bring so much to his business as well. I saw that. So that was great, but to go camping with these kids was a superb experience for myself, as I'm looking to develop. Another car coming here, just 1 second. I think it's the pastor, or I think it's a Catholic church actually down here. It's a Hungarian, so he must be a priest. Well, no, he can't be a priest. Looks like him and his wife. Whatever, minister, pastor, or something. Maybe it's not Catholic. Where was I? Oh, these kids. It was just a superb experience for me, because I'm working on mentoring kind of programs here in Vancouver that I want to be combining with my artwork and my building skills, and getting kids out and working with their hands, and doing it in a way that has some discipline there. So that's what I really saw when I was down there. Those kids were kept in line. There was no no back talk. It was, this is your responsibility. You have to be accountable. We are out here. You're listening to the adults. There was a hierarchy, and it was adhered to, and it was polite, and it was respectful, and it was a really a breath of fresh air to see something as simple as that. The kids were not dictating what was going on, put it that way. And it was great. I was out playing football with them. I was learning about their lifestyle, where they live in Jackson, and what they're into, and how they're viewing the world. And lots of them were playing sports. Some of them were into art and all that, but they got along well. And they really were great young guys. There was no complaining. They camped 2 nights, and it was a really, really amazing experience for myself personally. It's when I came back that I realized, and I started talking to my friends. They're asking me questions about what I've done on my little road trip, how really impactful and profound the whole trip was for me. And seeing the sun set on the banks of the Mississippi River, seeing it rise on the banks of the Mississippi River, looking at the stars, sitting around a campfire, talking to people that are from a different part of North America, and who gave me the utmost of respect, attention, asked me questions, were interested and truly interested in me. And my whole business, my creative website and stuff, I go by Cowlick Combs, but the kids were calling me Cowlick. Hey, Cowlick! So that was funny, and John too. So they just went with it. They just went with me. No, it was all just open. It was really cool, down to earth, and clean. It was very clean. There was no anybody stepping out of line. I was very impressed. So we got those kids back, and it felt, it was good. It was just a great experience, swimming with them in the river. The water was nice, and it was muddy, but it was warm and all that. We see some wild pigs, lots of deer tracks. We think we might even saw like a black bear track. The paws were really huge, and whatever, possums and stuff like that. So the nature aspect was wonderful. Lots of washed up turtles, lots of jumping carp, maybe some catfish, hard to say. And then there would be people cruising through on their boats that stop, say hello. Well, which brings me back to where John's location is. When I was there was a group of students on a Thursday or Friday from a school in Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities area. I forget what it's called, Ogden University, and it was called River Semester. I don't know how many of them there were. It looked to me like there was close to 20 of them or something like that, plus some instructors. They put their boats with sails on the river in Minnesota and went down. That's when they connected with John. So they camped in John's back. The business, he's kind of off a tributary called the Sunflower River in behind his business, and there's a low-lying grassy lawn down there. They camped down there. And when I was staying there, there's actually an outdoor shower. I was showering with an outdoor shower and sleeping in the middle floor of his building that used to be an old bar. And so that happened. I actually went out and had a couple of beers with a couple of the students while I was out. They were at the same place, and they sat with me, and we had a good conversation about some things, and we watched some blues music, and they were just having the time of their lives going down the Mississippi River, and they're going right down to New Orleans. So what an amazing program. And once again, they came through John. So it was many things that I can say that was positive about being in Clarksdale. It felt really good to be in an open, creative space where creativity is happening. It was really cool. But once again, and this is this is a bit of a kind of like a thank you to Mr. John Ruskey, which you guys can go look him up for yourself. I'm not good at providing links and all that stuff. I just can't go there yet in my YouTube life, but he's not a hard guy to find. John Ruskey, Qua Pa Canoe Company. So one of the things that I'm getting back to that inspires me about a guy like John is as I mentioned before, the no separation. When I was at his workplace, it's just very creative in nature, and it's really free flowing and really cool. And when I was at his home having breakfast the morning I left, the whole house is a working studio. Not the whole house, I shouldn't say that, but it's very creative. John is painting and writing, and he's got a legacy going on. This man here is well known throughout the South on that river. He has done some really some amazing work. Takes people out. There's species count and garbage cleanups, and I don't know how he really rolls these things, but actually his little species count thing, they go out and you start count. I was actually doing that on the river because I was reading John's emails before I got there, but I actually did it yesterday. I went for my own walk on my own beach here to pick up some material, and I started counting the species that I knew. And but when you're doing that, you start to learn about them. Then you get back and say, oh, I wonder what bird that was, and you can look it up, and then you kind of learn about it. So yeah, like I was actually doing that, and I was doing it again today, just driving around. So I like that little practice. And his list of things and the people that have gone through him, he's got again, it's a legacy that's being built. And as I had breakfast with him, it's warm. It's the advice, like the conversations that I had with him. I really like the tone of his voice and the depth of his thinking. And so when he's telling you something or passing on a little bit of information, you know, a guy like me, my ears are open. He's a guy that I can trust in, because I can see similarities in the lifestyle that I am working towards and what he's doing. So I really like that. As I was leaving, you know, I read 2 books. You know, the book that I was reading on my way there, I mentioned this book before. It's called Behave by Robert Sapolsky. I think this is an amazing book. It is an endeavor. There's lots of technical terms at the beginning, neuroscience terms and stuff like that. But if you're a person like myself that's being really confused about the landscape and the way that our society is bickering and divided, and it's just one thing after another, that book really helped me, because it's an in-depth study into human behavior by a really smart professor at Stanford, Robert Sapolsky. I really got a lot out of it. But then the book that I was reading on the way home is called I Am Coyote, and Readings for the Wild. And, you know, John sent me with this, and he gave me a little message inside. Cowlick Combs. Feel like I've been with a brother during this week of wonder. You're on a good path. You're a good person, and many blessings for the journey. John Ruskey. So to me, you know, and then he puts page 142. So John has an excerpt in this book which talks about the time that him and his friend, as I was mentioning, were going down the river in the raft, and the story in here is like they crashed, and John thought it could have been the end. Like, it was a scary situation. So the way that he wrote about it, it was really well written. So that was a little treasure. And now I'm going through it. I just got through the Moby Dick, and there's great writers: Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, John Muir, Charles Darwin, and John Ruskey, folks. So that's awesome. He also sent me with his solo album, John Ruskey, Riverman. There's a picture of John when he was younger. I'm assuming that's close to 25 or whatever years ago. And this album, I listened to it the other day as I was driving around, and it's just real. Like, it's just him expressing who he is, and through his music and stuff like that. And it was just like real, you know. It was really really excellent to listen to. And then he sent me with this album, the Delta Blues, live from the Dewdrop Inn. And I put that in actually when I arrived in Canada, and I was kind of like just thinking about my trip, and it was cool. And what's in here? Oh, actually, it's called the Wesley Jefferson Band Sings the Blues, and in this, John played organ. There's a photo of the band. John has on the black hat on there with his hands kind of tucked in, purplish shirt. So that's it's great. I really enjoyed listening to this. So he sent me with those. He also sent me with a DVD that was the story of him and his couple of friends in 2011, when the Mississippi River was flooding its banks. they put their canoe in, and I don't know the real details, but they put their canoe in and rode kind of a wave right down, and they cruised down. It must have been dangerous, and it was really extraordinary to watch how they had a camp and put their hammocks in trees in the forest. It was up like 30 feet or 40 feet higher than usual. And John gets this done. He has the discipline to do that, puts his own music in there and writes it and stuff like that. So just to take on those sort of projects takes discipline. And again, it's part of the whole legacy of what he's showing on the river. And to me, it's a very underrated artist and a very underrated these are the things that should be recognized, right? Like, so, and they are by certain people, but a guy like John, like I said, it's the Mississippi River. We're talking the gut of America. We're talking one of the great waterways of the world, and this guy knows it better than anybody and has documented it in a very beautiful, natural, and creative way. And what else can I put on there is that the painting. So he's mapped this out, and some of the work that he's done. John also sent me with a series of his paintings as he's mapping out the river. So what he does is, these are accurate depictions of the waterways, and he's putting them into these beautiful series of watercolor paintings. So once again, it's a very impressive body of work. And I was really thought I was with a master. And like I say, if a guy like John Ruskey's not a doctor, then who is? From my concern. So, what did I get out of the trip the most was that I want to go back. I want to spend a little bit of more time with John. So what I'm planning on doing is getting a van load on my own program together, 6-7 young people. I'll have a chaperone with me, and we take them on a drive to Clarksdale, Mississippi. All the while we're camping, and we're learning how to cook on fire. We're seeing the beautiful landscape. We're learning about America. We're learning about where we come from, and we're getting out and talking to the people. That's the key, and seeing that things are very different once you kind of step outside of where you're from. And then the destination is these young people will get to be around a guy like John, learn from him. He will take us out onto the river and go camping, and then we go through the John Ruskey experience. Guitars at the campfire. John was painting on the beach with the children. It's a real all-encompassing, profound experience. And I'm just hoping that I can kind of connect with a couple of other artists where we can stop in along the way. And I'm going to be calling them kind of like campfire lectures. And so something like that. And so that's what I hope comes out of this. And once again, it was an amazing experience. I thank you, Mr. John Ruskey. You were the perfect medicine that I needed at this time in my life. It inspired me. You were all that I had hoped for and more. You deserve a lot of credit, and I think your work is incredible, and I think it deserves to stand very high. And it's a unique thing, and it's done with humility. So thank you very much for that experience. And I hope that I get to see you again shortly with a group of young people that you could help inspire as well. Toodle-doo. Oh yeah, this is the Royals hat I bought with my mom's initials on there. I always was attracted to that hat ever since I saw it when I was a kid, so I gotta go meet a guy for some coffee right now, another carpenter who hopefully there's a business opportunity there. So I'll talk to you guys later.